PhD degree from Department of Physics. So Dr. Subhendu Manna have completed his PhD degree from the Department of Physics, IIT Madras, Chennai, India. As part of his PhD thesis, he have synthesized several alloy compositions in the form of amorphous and nanocrystalline. So Dr. Subhendu Manna is currently doing his postdoctoral fellow under RUSA scheme in the Department of Physics, Utkal University. He did his earlier postdoc fellowships in Department of Physics, IIT Kharagpur, and School of Physical Sciences, NISCR Bhubaneswar. So his research area includes experimental condensed matter physics in magnetic synchromines, magnetocaloric effect, anomalous topographical Hall effect and spintronics, magnetic properties of amorphous nanocrystalline alloys, soft magnetism, magnetoimpedance studies, nanomagnetism, electrode deposited thin film alloys. So he is having more than 11 international publication. So then he have participated in more than 9 conferences, international national conferences. So now he is going to present under the title Nanocrystal Ribbons for Magnetic Field Sensor Applications. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
to the organizer for giving me such beautiful introduction and giving me the opportunity to present my research work. So let me share the screen first. So is it visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please proceed.
So the title of my research work is Nanocrystalline Ribbon for Magnetic Field Sensor Application. So outline of my talks are like this. First, I will briefly introduce the magnetic field sensor and what are the disadvantages and advantages of presently available magnetic field sensor. Then I will introduce the effect called magnetoimpedance effect. What is the origin of magnetoimpedance effect? And what are those material is useful for magnetoimpedance effect. Next, I will explain the controlling parameter which can control the magnetoimpedance effect. Next, I will present what is the motivation of the present work. Next, I will show my experimental results and what is the theoretical numerical solution of this material and how it is coincide with our experimental and theoretical work. Finally, I will conclude my. So magnetic field sensors is a transducer or a instrument which can convert magnetic field into the electric field, so that it can sense the presence of magnetic field. So this galvanomagnetic effect occur when magnetically carrying conductor is presented in or exposed to a electric field. So this there are so many magnetic sensor like Hall effect sensor, flux meter, GMR, TMR, and collision magnetoresistor sensor, all those things. Out of that magnetoresistance sensor attracted more attention because it shows very large sensitivity at the Tesla level. So if you see the graph, you can see the large change of resistance in presence of magnetic field, which is in Tesla. Now this effect is generally observed at very low temperature, like at 5 Kelvin, and that value reduces to very small at ambient condition, like room temperature at 300 Kelvin. So let us see the disadvantages of this MR sensor, magnetoresistance sensor. So it can only detect the field in the order of few Tesla. So low field sensing is not possible by this MR sensor. Number two is that the GMR sensor is mainly useful for low temperature. Like already I have told, at 5 Kelvin it has very large value, but if you go to the higher temperature, that efficiency is reduced. And number three is, this is magnetoresistance, so change of resistance. So it will useful for only low frequency application, like 10 hertz, 50 hertz, like this. But for megahertz frequency application, we cannot use magnetoresistance sensor. And this material is not useful for very low field sensitive materials. So this is not a good choice for low field sensor and room temperature. So what is the next? Next, actually recently one more phenomena is observed, which is magnetoimpedance, which actually seems like similar, name-wise it is similar to GMR, but it is not. The origin of magnetoresistance and magnetoimpedance totally different. In this graph, you can see large change in impedance with external magnetic field, which field is very low and in the range of Oersted only. And it works in room temperature also. So we got some advantages over magnetoresistance sensor. So what is the difference origin of magnetoresistance and magnetoimpedance? I will come in the next slide. Let me first compare the other field sensor with this sensor. If you see Hall sensor, magnetoresistance sensor, giant magnetoresistance sensor, flux gate, squid, magnetoimpedance, space impedance, and corresponding parameters like head length, resolution in full scale, response speed, power consumption. Among these, we can see this magnetoimpedance sensor has a head length moderate, that resolution also very good, 8 into 10 to the power 5 ampere per meter, and full scale length is so high. More importantly, its response speed is very high, 10 to the power 6. Although we cannot compare it with the squid, because squid is very big instrument and it is not easily available, but it has very fast response speed and power consumption also very less. So if you see the advantages of magnetoimpedance sensor, it is compatible with the other magnetic field sensor with very large field sensitivity, which is 10,000 times more than magnetoresistance sensor, and useful for high frequency application. We will see in next slide that it is useful for megahertz range of frequency of the AC current. And robustness of magnetoimpedance sensor with time and temperature drift is another important parameter. It means that with time and temperature, your sensing parameters will not change, sensing factors will not change, it will be robust. Next is most importantly cost effective than other field sensor. Easily can make by a prototype sensor, you can make in lab also. One of that prototype sensor is showing here in this picture. Now let me introduce the magnetoimpedance effect. What is magnetoimpedance effect? Magnetoimpedance effect is the change of impedance of a soft ferromagnetic conductor in presence of external steady magnetic field. Let me see the schematic diagram. If you take a ferromagnetic conductor like ribbon here, we will apply AC current through this, and due to this, the end side voltage, two ends voltage drop is VAC. So Z, impedance Z is VAC by IAC, which has two parts. One is resistance part, another is reactance part. X is reactance part. And this AC current will develop a AC voltage, AC magnetic field transfers to the conductor, that is HSC. Okay. Now, if I will apply some external magnetic field along the length of the conductor, that ferromagnetic conductor, your impedance will change. This graph is showing that change. Gradually, it will change and it will drop down. So this phenomena is known as magnetoimpedance effect. So that magnetoimpedance is parameterized by one factor, which is percentage of magnetoimpedance, that is Z at field H minus Z at maximum field of the experiment by Z at maximum field of the experiment into 100. That is called magnetoimpedance percentage. So let's see what is the origin of magnetoimpedance. Actually, mainly it is due to skin effect of the AC current. Let's see the skin depth of a ferromagnetic. Any conductor can be represented, or ferromagnetic conductor can represent delta M is equal to root over of 1 by pi sigma F into mu T. What is pi? Pi is a constant, sigma is a electrical conductivity, F is the frequency of the AC current, whatever we are applying. Mu T is the transverse permeability during measurement. Mu T, that is come from domain wall motion and domain rotation. Right? Transverse permeability for ribbon. If we take a wire, ferromagnetic wire, that will be circumferential permeability. Now, how the relation between impedance and skin depth? Inversely proportional. Z is inversely proportional to delta M. That is proportional to root over sigma mu into F. Let us see this schematic diagram and the graph below. When we don't have any external magnetic field, this x-axis is external magnetic field, y-axis is mu T, transverse permeability, and another y-axis represents the skin depth delta, how it is changing with permeability mu. Transverse permeability, of course. So when we have not applied any magnetic field, the skin depth is very small. This is showing skin depth. So all the current will flow through the surface of the conductor. This is cross section of the conductor, which is showing this schematic picture. Now, if I will increase the magnetic field, means longitudinally will increase the magnetic field. So your transverse permeability will reduce, it will go towards the longitudinal direction. So mu T will reduce gradually. Then when mu T is decreasing, your skin depth will increase. This is showing skin depth increment. From this skin depth expression, you can see. So whenever skin depth will increase, your impedance will decrease. Why? Because it will get more cross-sectional area to flow the current. Because your skin depth, it is going inner core of the material, that AC current. So your impedance will decrease. So that is the origin of the magnetoimpedance effect. Now, how can I choose a material for magnetoimpedance effect? So the material should have very ultra soft magnetic, soft magnetic properties. What are those parameters? Like high saturation magnetization, high initial permeability, low coercivity, low loss, low magnetic loss actually, low, very high TC, transition temperature. That means it should be in ferromagnetic order up to very high temperature. So let us see what is soft magnetic material. If you see this graph, you can see, let's start from the first coordinate. If I'll apply some external magnetic field to a magnetic material, initially that magnetization will not increase. It will be almost parallel to your H-axis. Then it will suddenly start increasing. At that point, what is the permeability that is known as initial permeability. Why it is happening? So if I'll apply some external magnetic field, the domain wall movement will be along the field direction, means it will try to become a single domain material. So it will take time to overcome this because there are so many voids that defects inside the material. So it will not increase first. Then finally it will start increasing and it rapidly increase. In this region, if you see the first coordinate graph only, the Virgin graph. So there will be a domain-wide motion as well as domain rotation in the moderate field. Then finally, domain-wide motion will stop because it will become a single domain. Then finally, there will be only domain rotation. So at high field, we will get increase of the magnetization very less, and it will almost reach the saturation. That time, there will be only domain rotation. Then if I will just reverse the magnetic field, it will not follow the same path. It will follow different path because there is a hysteresis mechanism in hysteresis property. Like it will not follow the same path because there will be eddy current pinning, domain one pinning, all those things. So it will go like this. So even we will bring it zero, there will be a magnetization that is called remnant magnetization, MR. And further, if we increase the field in the reverse direction, and we will get a particular field where that is becoming zero. Your saturation magnetization is becoming zero. Saturation becoming zero. So that is coercive field. So this way I will get a hysteresis graph like this. The area of the loop is hysteresis loss. That should be low for a soft ferromagnetic material. Your saturation magnetization will be high. Initial permeability will be high. Coercive field, that AC, whatever I explained, that is very low. And low magnetic anisotropy. It should be very easily magnetized. Anisotropy will be not there. That is another important parameter of submagnetic material. High magnetic transition temperature, I have already explained. Let us come to the MI material. Next is low resistivity. Electrical resistivity will be low, but because I have seen in the expression spin depth delta is inversely proportional to your conductivity. So we need very high conductive material or very low resistive material. Next, slightly negative magnetostriction. Magnetostriction is change of dimension or of the material in presence of magnetic field. So this is called magnetostriction. This should be slightly negative. Why negative? I will come in next clip. Next, we well-defined domain structure will be also there. So how that magnetostriction depend upon the magnetic anisotropy. If we have positive magnetostriction, we will get longitudinal domain structure like this. So this first figure represents longitudinal domain structure. If we have this longitudinal domain structure pattern ribbon, we'll get a single peak magnetoimpedance effect. What is that single peak? Suppose if I will apply external magnetic field and see the change of impedance Z, so it will gradually decrease. Similarly for negative magnetic field also. Now, if I will see the negative magnetostrict material, there will be a transverse domain pattern, transverse to the length of the ribbon or any conductor. So transverse domain pattern. How we will see this magnetoimpedance behavior? We will see first gradually it will increase up to certain field and then gradually decrease. That field where we will get peak, that is called anisotropy field, where up to which it increases. That is called anisotropy field, this one. So for magnetoimpedance material, properties of a magnetoimpedance material should be like this, whatever I explained. Now, how I control this? Suppose I have taken a magnetic material which has all those properties, but I have to further improve this magnetoimpedance effect. How I will do? I have seen from this, it is mainly related to the soft magnetic material and permeability. So permeability of a material can be represented by this equation where Js is mu0 into Ms, saturation magnetization. So, and mu0 is the permeability of free space. B is the inhomogeneity term. K1 is the magnetocrystalline anisotropy, which we need less for magnetoimpedance effect. because magnetocrystalline anisotropy will reduce its permeability. Next is induced anisotropy. Actually, induced anisotropy, according to a requirement, we can change, increase or decrease like this. Next is magnetoelastic anisotropy. We also need this should be less. So the magnetoelastic term is related to lambda s and sigma s, the magnetorestriction and conductivity. What we have seen, minimum magnetocrystalline anisotropy is required. For that, what we have to do, we need a amorphous or nanocrystalline structured material. Next is minimum magnetoelastic anisotropy. To get this minimum, we need non-magnetostrictive or traceless material. Okay. So for that, what we have to do first, how we choose our material. So first approach is like this. We have to take best magnetic composition. Mainly you have to take iron, cobalt or nickel because those are ferromagnetics, spontaneous magnetization fluid. So we have taken cobalt 70, iron 5. Why? Because if you see this graph, magnetorestriction. Hello.
आज बाबू भी आया, कल बाबू की अटेंडेंस।
Hello.
वो परमानेंट है, आप उनके बारे में नहीं बोल सकते हैं।
Sir. Subhendra sir.
Hello.
Yes sir.
Actually, some noise
Sir.
came. So
Yes sir. Yes sir. Actually, it was muted sir. Please proceed sir.
So how I can choose this material like cobalt 70, Fe5. I have taken because why? If you see this graph, we can see that magnetorestriction is like this. For iron, it is highly positive up to some field, and then it is reducing to the negative side. Cobalt, if you will see, cobalt is slightly negative and nickel is largely negative. So if I will make a combination between these two, iron and cobalt is 70% and iron 5%, we will get high saturation value also from the cobalt, as well as we can control the magnetorestriction. Number 2 is that we have to add some selected dopants like copper. Copper is nucleating reagent, which can if we go from amorphous to nanocrystalline material, it will nucleate the crystal grains inside the material. Number 3, this is silver. Silver can control the conductivity of the material. Niobium is gain growth inhibitor. It will not allow to grow the grain very big size. So there are so many other elements also and their particular applications. I have given only 3 examples. So next, number 3 is this amorphization of constituent alloy. Because I have shown already, to minimize or nullify the magnetocrystalline anisotropy, we have to go to the amorphous material, where magnetocrystalline anisotropy is less. But some other anisotropy is present there, like magnetoelastic anisotropy, we have to optimize those. So for that, we have to need control crystallization or nanocrystallization. So here is our motivation starts, because that can be done by annealing. How annealing can help our improvement of magnetoimpedance effect. So by annealing, we can create some control microstructure inside the material, annealing of amorphous material. Next, we can adjust the well-defined domain structures. Number 3 is nanocrystallization of the material. Number 4 is controlled development of induced anisotropy. Here also, it is very important. We can induce some extra anisotropy, by which method we will come in the next slide. And stress relaxation. Whatever during quenching time, there will be some external stress inside the material. So that if you can release, you will get magnetoelastic anisotropy free material. Next is what is our motivation? Actually, whatever I told, magnetocrystalline anisotropy can be reduced by amorphization of the material, then nanocrystallization. Actually, there are mainly two approaches for nanocrystallization. One is top down, another is bottom up. Top down means what? If you take a bulk material, just break it by some mechanical agency or source and break it into small size, even smaller, finally we'll get the nanocrystalline or nanoparticles. Other way is that initially we'll go to the atomic level of the material, like atoms of or like amorphous. Now, if I'll just crystallize by control manner, we'll get cluster of the material, then we'll get nanocrystalline or nanoparticles. Every process has their own advantages and disadvantages. Let me see the advantages of this bottom-up method. This is ultra-fine nanoparticle, nanocells, nanotubes can be prepared by this bottom-up method. And crystallization parameters can be controlled. We can control the crystallization according to our requirement. How much crystallized site we want, we can control by external thermoelectric. And site distribution of the nanoparticle will be very small. Means same size of nanocrystalline material we can get. Number 4 is that it is very cheaper and simple technique. So let us see some example. Like this amorphous FeSiCuNvB amorphous ribbon. If we'll just take that amorphous ribbon and just early heat treatment, if we'll do like very low temperature around 50 or 60 degree, first it will start clustering copper. So small copper cluster will form. This will act as a nucleating reagent. So nucleation of other material like FeSi will start from that centering this copper nucleating reagent. If I increase further the temperature, we will see the FeSi phase is formed on the copper cluster. And beside this, we will get a background which has like niobium and boron rich amorphous structure. Further increment of this temperature, we will get optimized nanocrystalline state with FeSi nanoparticle plus copper cluster as well as amorphous FeNvB matrix. So what we have controlled here, let us see. We have minimized the magnetocrystalline anisotropy according to random anisotropy models. So if you see this ferromagnetic material, there is a particular distance, exchange correlation distance, so that all the magnetocrystalline anisotropy will cancel each other. So we will get almost vanishing magnetocrystalline anisotropy and reduction in magnetoelastic anisotropy through stress relaxation. It is relaxed stress by this thermal annealing. Number 3 is that optimize saturation magnetorestriction. How it is saturated? Like this example, FeSi has positive magnetorestriction and this amorphous background has negative magnetorestriction. So it will counterbalance to each other. We will get almost nearly zero magnetorestriction material. So what next? Actually, how can we develop induced anisotropy? You have not seen any induced anisotropy part here. Here we started thinking if we apply some external magnetic field during nanocrystallization. So in the present of external magnetic field, if I will nanocrystallize, so we'll get some different property of course. So there are many processes like conventional furnace annealing in presence of magnetic field, but here we have adapted one method which is called Joule annealing. So Joule annealing, what we will take a ferromagnetic conductor like this. we apply a DC current in this material. So due to this Joule heating, that ribbon will anneal in presence of self-generated magnetic field. Why? When DC current will pass, it will produce a transverse self-generated magnetic field like this. So if you take a cobalt-rich material which has almost transverse magnetic domain structure or magnetic anisotropy in the transverse direction, we will see the cross section of this Joule annealed ribbon is like this. So surface will be surface magnetic moment will align by like this. This is a schematic diagram also, of course, because in the experimentally it will be quite complicated. So why Joule annealing we are preferring? Annealing in presence of self-generated magnetic field, simple technique to compared to conventional annealing. Conventional annealing means furnace annealing. Their application of magnetic field is not so easy. So your magnet will destroy immediately if it will be given to the magnetic source also. Number 3 is that substantial heating only. Means we are not heating the atmosphere, only we are heating the conductor. So substantial heating means there is a gradient of temperature. Your ribbon is heated up, but your circumference or surroundings are not that much heated, So there will be a chance of graded microstructure. Like surface will have particular microstructure and core has some different microstructure. And this type of structure we want because we have seen this is that magnetic impedance mainly skin effect. So when it will, that AC current will grow from skin to core, definitely there will be change of magnetic impedance. Number 4 is that easy to apply external magnetic field during annealing. I have already explained. So in furnace annealing, it is difficult to apply magnetic field, but here we don't have to worry about this. We can apply some external magnetic field here also. A self-generated magnetic field as well as some extra magnetic field will also apply. So here we have started our work like this. We have taken the composition like cobalt 70, iron 4.5, niobium 1.5, silicon 4.2, and boron 16.9. Boron is useful for amorphization of the material. This is metalloid. Silicon can control its conductivity of the material. Niobium is gain growth inhibitor, and iron cobalt has already explained why we have taken in this ratio. And the current density, optimized current density of the annealing of the ribbon, I have taken 1.5 into 10 to the power 7 ampere per meter. And we have applied the external magnetic field transverse of the ribbon as well as longitudinal direction of the ribbon, that is 500 oersted, in both in transverse and longitudinal direction. So let us see the experimental part first. This is a arc furnace. You can see the container of the arc furnace. There is a electrode like this, and this is copper hearth where we have taken kept our sample in the water-cooled copper base or copper hearth. This is tungsten tip. If I just touch the copper hearth by applying some large current, we can create arc, and if we focus that arc in the sample, it will melt and we'll get ingot type of sample. But atmosphere we have to control by argon atmosphere, because otherwise it will be oxidized. First we have to evacuate the chamber, go to the 10 to the power minus 6 millibar. Then we just fill up by argon so that your sample will be not oxidized. So this is the process of alloying. After making that alloy ingot, we have to make ribbon. How we have made? We have taken a quartz tube with a small orifice in the end, and that quartz tube we kept in a RF frequency generator, RF coil. It is like this, and apply some RF frequency current. Due to this eddy current, that sample, ingot sample will heat up and it will become melt. Now, at the end of the coil tube, we have connected a argon gas cylinder. If we will pressurize by argon gas, that molten will fall on a copper wheel of a motor, which is rotating with very high speed, and we will get ribbon like this. This type of ribbon we will get by this process. This is called melt spinning technique, or spin quenching also sometimes. So we get the ribbon. Now how we'll process this ribbon? Just we make a homemade setup like this. We stew the ribbon in this way, and two connectors like DC connectors is there, and we can vacuum it by pump, make it 10 to the power minus 3 millibar, and annihilate with a proper density, current density. How will you apply the magnetic field? You can apply longitudinal direction as well as transverse direction of the ribbon. Now this how we'll measure the magnetic impedance. The magnetic impedance measurement is mainly 4-probe method. This you can see we have placed our ribbon in a Helmholtz coil. This is homemade Helmholtz coil, which can go magnetic field up to 200 around. And these are 4 probes. It is connected to impedance analyzer. This is the impedance analyzer. This is the power supply or Helmholtz coil. This is Gauss meter to measure the DC current, DC field inside the material, and we can measure the magnetic impedance. This is impedance. This is some theta value, and this is frequency. Let us see what is the state of the material, whether it is amorphous or crystalline. If you see the Ascoing sample, it is totally amorphous, and this TEM graph also shown that Ascoing sample is amorphous. This is microstructure, and this is the shade pattern of this. This is LJF, means longitudinal Joule field annealing. Longitudinal field applied and annealed. This is also in amorphous or nanocrystalline state, we can say. Next is transverse field annealing. Also, it's almost maintain its amorphous structure. This is Joule field annealed sample. XRT of Joule field annealed sample. If you see the magnetization of the material, initial magnetization, Ascoing sample is having this blue color graph. Now, if I'll apply some DC current only, we are not applying the magnetic field, we see the increase of transverse anisotropy, because you can see from this graph, transverse anisotropy is increased. Why? Because here we have applied a DC current which has self-generated magnetic field, and it will produce transverse magnetic anisotropy. And when we apply external magnetic field, that external magnetic field reduces this transverse anisotropy. So what we have understood from here, if we will increase the transverse annealing field, it will not increase monotonically the transverse anisotropy. So after certain field, it will start reducing, because I'll come that explanation in the next slide, because there is a Lorentz force also. And if when we apply a longitudinal magnetic field, that green color graph, we have very less magnetic anisotropy. It's saturated very fast. So now come to our magnetic impedance effect. Let me start with Ascoing sample. We have measured the magnetic impedance in the field range of 0.5 megahertz to 13 megahertz, but we have presented some representative frequency for the clarity of the graph. We can see all the graph has first, when we increase the magnetic field, it increases up to some extent and then reduces. And similarly for the left side, this type of peak is known as double peak behavior. So we can see that preferably transverse anisotropy is present there, but that is very small. Now, when we anneal by a current density of 1.5 into 10 to the power 7 ampere per meter square, we can see this deep of the peak, middle, you can see it increased very largely. So, and this anisotropy field also increased. That increment of double peak behavior, what does it mean? We have already presented in introduction. Means we have transverse domain pattern or transverse anisotropy mode. This is by Joule annealing only. Now, when we apply some external magnetic field in the transverse direction, that anisotropy has not further increased, but it reduced, because we can see the micrograph and see other thing also, or by this schematic diagram also. When we are applying some external magnetic field, that flow of the electrons, whatever DC current I applying during Joule annealing, it will retard it. It will just, that path will be elongated and there will be a lot of collision, so that we will get very much voids and holes inside the material, because it will affect the material inside of the material very largely. I'll come in the microgram and I'll show that. And next, interestingly, we have seen when we have applied longitudinal magnetic field during annealing 500 Oersted, this figure you can see that double peak nature is completely destroyed and it becomes single peak. So what we have seen, that magnetic field and magnetic anisotropy is switching from transverse direction to longitudinal direction, longitudinal to the length of the ribbon. So this is the comparison at 5 megahertz. You can see that blue color is Ashwin sample, very less anisotropy. But when we have annealed at 1.5 ampere into 10 to the power 7 ampere per meter current, this deep is very large and anisotropy more. Then 500 Oersted transverse annealing, it is reducing a little bit, but till there is a transverse anisotropy. But when we anneal with longitudinal field annealing, like red color curve, we totally shifted it into the single peak. So this is very interesting. We can just switch the magnetic anisotropy to the longitudinal direction from transverse direction. And this schematic diagram shows how a cross section of the ribbon, how we have applied the external magnetic field and what will the effect on this. Let me see the micrograph. This is Ashwin sample. The surface is totally clean surface for Ashwin sample. But when we have applied some external DC current 1.5 into the power 7 ampere per meter square, we have seen some microcrystallines are floated up in the surface, and some rods type of structure also have seen, but although all are in the nanocrystalline or amorphous state. Now, when we have applied some external magnetic field, transverse Joule annealing, whatever we have told already, that there are so many destruction inside the material. We have seen some voids, hole, and rods are just inclined with the surface, so which can produce more hardness inside the material, and that is happening because of the retardation of the electron path during Joule annealing, because of Lorentz force inside the material. Lorentz force will be maximum when your applied field and current direction will be perpendicular to each other. So that's why we have seen this type of structure. Now, when we have applied external field longitudinal to the direction, so Lorentz force will be 0. So although we have given same current, but this pattern is completely different. We have seen this type of pattern, and floated rods are present in the surface of the ribbon. Now, we can see the MI graph. Here we can get mildly transverse anisotropy because that peak, double peak behavior is very minor. Now strongly transverse anisotropy is created on transverse annealing without magnetic field, but only self-reactant magnetic field. And this is reduced further by transverse magnetic field, and it is totally shifted to the longitudinal anisotropy when we have applied some external longitudinal magnetic field. So this is the numerical table where we have seen that Ashwin sample, that HK field, which is anisotropy field is 4. Then we have introduced another parameter, that is depth of the peak psi percentage, which is MI percent max minus MI percent at 0 field. Means if you see the graph, MI percentage max minus MI percent at 0 field by MI percent at maximum field, MI percent and maximum field, which represents the depth of the double peak. So this is represented by this column. You can see Ashwin sample has 13 only. But when we have annealed at different current, which I have not shown in the PPTs, but we have optimized the zone annealing current also 0.85 into 10 to the power 7 ampere per meter square, 1.1 into 10 to the power 7 ampere per meter square, 1.5, 2, then 2.5. In that 2.5 and 3 we have seen totally it is crystallized and big crystals are came. So we have seen deterioration of the magnetization as well as magnetoimpedance effect. I have not included those slides here, but we have seen that optimization of current there. That let us concentrate on psi only. This is 13, then it is 16. The depth is further increased 55, and it is maximum at 100 when we have Joule annealing 1.5 into 10 to the power 7 ampere per meter, that is 107. So although we got the maximum magnetoimpedance percentage at 175, because this double peak behavior is more in 1.5 current density, we have taken this as a optimized current density. And what we have done, we have applied some different magnetic field, 50 oersted transverse Joule annealing field, 50 oersted longitudinal, 500 oersted and 500 oersted longitudinal magnetic field. What we have seen that when we have already shown in the figure, that is, this is the optimization parameter at numerical value. If we see the field sensitivity, which is more important parameter for sensor application, that is eta equal to DDH of MI percentage, means change of magnetoimpedance per unit magnetic field, which is maximum for 1.5 into 10 to the 7 ampere Joule annealed ribbon, that is 40, and maximum magnetoimpedance we have got 170% among this study. So, but if we'll see the longitudinal field annealing, this MI percentage decreases, which is supported by our introductory part, where we have seen that we need transverse anisotropy mainly for large magnetoimpedance effect. But longitudinal anisotropy means your magnetoimpedance is decreased here. You can see here. Now coming to my theoretical part, where we have just simulated to show how this MI peak behavior is altered with your angle of anisotropy inside the ribbon. So this is a ribbon shape geometry where this is the thickness of the ribbon. This is Z direction, X direction, Y direction. width is W, length is L. Now if I'll see domain pattern of this ribbon will be like this. There will be no particular domain pattern, but making angle to each other. Domain 1 and domain 2 has some angle. Actually, whatever we have seen, the permeability is the main parameter which can control all these things. So MI also we can just simulate from permeability mu r. This is the expression of the permeability mu r. Where gamma is the gyromagnetic ratio, He is the equivalent field, Ms saturation magnetization, omega is the frequency of the AC current, alpha is the damping constant. A is expressed by this thing. Now show the schematic diagram. Theta 0 is the angle between the edge axis of magnetization and transverse to the ribbon, and theta is the angle between saturation magnetization and edge axis of magnetization, and this side it is external field is applied along this direction along the length of the ribbon. Now if I can do one thing, just keep theta 0 constant and just vary theta, means edge axis of magnetization we are changing, and we can see some different peak behavior by simulation. How we can see in this figure, we can see, let us theta is equal to 0. We can see a very sharp magnetoimpedance peak with single peak nature, and sharpness of the peak is showing in this inside picture, and how that peak magnetoimpedance is behaving with frequency also we have plotted in this inside picture. We can see it reached such maximum value and then started decreasing. Why it is happening? At the lower frequency range, both inductance and impedance play a role to increase the magnetoimpedance. And at the higher frequency, only impedance play a role, and that gradually decrease. We have seen in all the inset curves that at higher frequency, magnetoimpedance percentage is gradually decreasing. Next, if we take 15-degree angle, that sharpness of the magnetoimpedance graph is increased and impedance percentage also increased. Similarly, we have seen this peak behavior also, and variation of magnetoimpedance with frequency. At 35-degree also we have seen sharply single peak behavior, but when we have given 45-degree, that theta is equal to 45-degree, double peak appears and double peak starts, and very large value of impedance we have observed. And further, the double peak nature is increased when we have changed the angle 65 and 80 also. So, which is quite similar to our experimental result when our transverse anisotropy is increasing or angle theta is increasing, double peak behavior of the impedance is increasing. But main difference is that value is very high in this theoretical simulated graph. This is coming actually the discrepancy between the theory which we have make assumption is very basic things, but in experimental all those things are not happen like this. There are so many anisotropic constant, your practical some parameter also controlling the magnetoimpedance. So that's why that impedance value is not matching, but the behavior, the trend of the material is completely matching with the experimental value. Now coming to my conclusion, so what we have shown that control crystallization improved or nanocrystallization improved the magnetic and MI property of the nanocrystalline ribbon. So we have seen how that in presence of magnetic field controlling the anisotropy, we can improve the magnetoimpedance. in presence of magnetic field during earthing influence the grain growth. Grain we have seen sometimes that rod-shaped structure is perpendicular to the surface of the ribbons, and sometimes it is floating on the surface, although those are in nanocrystalline state. Number 3 is that magnetic anisotropic also can be tuned through proper heating and changing the direction of the magnetic field present during annealing. Means if we change from transverse to the longitudinal direction, our magnetic anisotropy can be tuned from transverse direction to longitudinal anisotropy we have got. And next is that numerical simulation also shows the development of transverse anisotropy produce double peak behavior by MI curve. So we have seen with varying the angle theta, we have seen conversion from single peak to double peak, and corresponding anisotropy also changed. So this is definitely interesting result because shifting of anisotropy is very important for our device application. And sensor part, if we consider that sensing ability also 40% we have got, which is very large. Let us acknowledge our co-authors like this, Professor V. Srinivas from Department of Physics and Professor Krishnan Balasubramaniam, Department of Mechanical Engineering, IIT Madras. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Participants, if you have some doubts, you can post in the chat window, or you can even unmute and talk. I have enabled you to unmute. If you have any queries, you can ask the expert. You can type in the chat window, or you can even unmute and ask your queries. Is there any specific queries? It was a nice presentation, Professor. Thank you. The crystalline structures, I think it was very clear. So I think many will have a doubt, but they have time. They take time to type. Maybe they ask sometime later. Or you can, we will share your email ID with them, sir, so that if they have some doubts in their research, they will contact you.
Okay, sure.
Vinod, Dr. Vinod?
Yes, sir.
Is there any queries, or shall we wind up?
Yes, sir.
Rajesh,
So,
thanks for yes.
There is no query, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
your valuable time.
Thank you.
Definitely will take up your information for research. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
We'll get back to you, sir. Thank you, sir. Participants, we will start the next session by 2 o'clock. It is Dr. Pradeep Kumar Panda from Yonsei University, South Korea. You can join by 1:55. Thank you. Thank you, Tilakavati ma'am, Rajeshwari ma'am. Thank you.